Hello and welcome to day 23. Today we're going to talk about all the false relationships we get into with our drugs of choice. When I say drugs of choice, I don't mean just illegal street drugs. I mean any way that you get synthetic dopamine. That could be from gambling, that could be from alcohol, it could be from Netflix, nicotine, smartphones, the internet, you name it. Anything that gives you dopamine, you can get attached to and get into a relationship with. So we're going to try to break that bond over the next week or two. Whether we know it or not, we kind of get hooked into these relationships because they're predictable, they're consistent, they're kind of more easy to control and manipulate. And we like that because real life relationships are kind of messy and unpredictable. So we get into these relationships with our smartphone or with our computers because we can control them a little bit easier than we normally could. But as in any relationship, things start to get messy after a while. And as they get worse, we start to kind of avoid responsibility for what we should be doing and check our Instagram instead. We may drink 1 or 2 or 3 more drinks than we're supposed to. Or we may start lying to people about our usage, which just shows you that you can kind of get into a relationship and get in a little too deep, a little too quickly. But there's always a point where we should break up with our drug of choice, whatever that might be. But breaking up is really hard, because we always kind of remember the good times when it was really good and kind of black out the times that we don't really want to admit are happening. Even myself, who are an addictions counselor, have problems with my drug of choice. Say that's Instagram. I had to put an app on my phone that stopped me from checking it because I really couldn't control my behavior. So even as an addictions counselor, it's really hard to kind of be smarter than your own brain. So you have to kind of go through stages. This is a process. And like with any loss, whether that's a death or a loss of a relationship or breaking up with your smartphone, you go through certain stages. And the stages of grief go like this. It goes denial, sadness, anger, bargaining, and then acceptance. But we don't always go in those order. You kind of bounce back and forth between those. Sometimes you stay in one for a minute, then you go to another, and then you kind of rebound back to that same spot. But as you're breaking up with your drug of choice, whatever that might be, you're going to go through this process. You might feel sadness. You might be in denial that you actually have a problem. You might go through bargaining, saying, well, maybe I'll just do it here or just do it there. And then eventually, hopefully, you go to acceptance and you stay there for as long as you can. Because it's really hard to break up with something. So give yourself permission to kind of go slowly, not do it exactly the right way every time. Because your brain wants to keep dating this thing that it likes, that gives it pleasure, that it thinks is important for its survival. So for our self-reflection today, we're going to kind of see where you are in the grieving process and try to identify ways that you can kind of get out of this relationship that might be harmful. You might be in that vicious cycle. You might be kind of being abused by this drug of choice in a way. That's all I have for today. Thanks for checking in, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.